The Shepnaz Podcast begins now.
You're listening to the Shepnaz Podcast, a podcast at Shepherd Church. Everything we do here is to connect our community in a meaningful relationship with Christ, and we're expecting great things. My name's Joey. I'm the host of this podcast, and today I'm joined by several of my very good friends, and we are going to talk about a recent trip that our student ministry took to Nazarene Youth Conference in Tampa, Florida, and that's what we're going to dive into today. We're going to have a couple of episodes on this because there was so much that we got to be a part of, so many messages we heard. So that's what we're going to do over the next few days. And so, guys, welcome in. Hey, let's go around the room and just introduce yourself so that our wonderful listeners and viewers get to know who you are. And we're going to start with Cheeto.
Well, as Joey said, I'm Cheeto.
Wow.
Very
Riveting. We got Cheeto and...
I'm MK.
MK. And then all the way across the table.
I'm AJ.
I'm Carter.
I'm Elizabeth.
And
Bryanna.
Yeah, I'm Joey. And then we're missing a couple who went with us, but they're with us in spirit. I asked them if they wanted to Bluetooth in, and they did not respond. Because we have that capability, because this is a legitimate podcast. We could do that.
Full-fledged.
That's so cool.
That's so cool.
All right, so hey, so it's been a little over a week since we got back from Nazarene Youth Conference, and this is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for some of us. For others, like Mary Kay, she gets to go again. Some of you are too old, unless you become a youth worker, and then you can go as many times as you want. But Nazarene Youth Conference happens once every 4 years, and it is students from Nazarene churches from all across USA and Canada, and we got to go to Tampa. So let's just throw out kind of your first impressions about how the trip went, what the experience was like, and kind of your overall things before we get into some of the details. Carter's going to go first. That's not shocking.
The overall experience, it was very, I'd say it was a lot different than any other retreat that we've ever been on, which is crazy because we met so many people. I mean, me and MK talked to 5 people from Canada and Alaska at the same time. So very far away from Florida. Well, not Ohio, but Florida. Mm-hmm. So
still very far away from that.
Well, across a lake, but
not Alaska.
Alaska's more than across the lake.
Yeah.
So Geography 101 with Carter.
Good. I'm not gonna say anything. Yeah, but it's just crazy, and there was 10,000 people there. Yeah. So it's
that's big.
There were so many people, and a lot of lines too. A lot of lines for food and stuff.
My initial from the whole trip, I think, was just how crazy it is that you have such a diverse group of people coming together for a single thing, and that is to worship God. That we had such a connection under Jesus Christ that we could all kind of come together, listen to the amazing speakers, and take something away from that, and then use what we learned to better our community. And I think just the effect that we had, even being there for 4 or 5 days that we were actually kind of in Tampa, just to see the things that we could do and accomplish all together was really insane.
I feel I don't know, this might just be me, but I feel the Christian community seems very, very small, but then when you're there and you're worshiping with 10,000 people, it's it doesn't seem so small, and you don't feel as alone.
Mm-hmm. And anybody enjoy the being at the airport at 3 a.m?
I love
that was the best part of it.
Lines was great
because right before the sleepiness kicked in, and you just wanted to go to your room and sleep for the rest of your life, right?
Some of you almost never got a room.
That's the longest
that was
I've ever been awake. I did the math, and I was awake for 38 hours straight, so that was fun. But I don't know how I stayed up, but.
So let's dive in then to the first day of the actual conference. In the morning, we had a sermon from Lamorris Crawford. He's a great speaker, great pastor. Do you guys remember it?
Yes.
I felt bad because I could not stay awake that first
Yeah.
day, but I caught most of what he said.
Yeah, so
Like,
what he talked about was he titled his message "When in Drought," and he talked about how desert places were to be visited but not inhabited, and what we talked about was the flood of God's love and God's presence in our life. And I got a couple of quotes that I remember from it that I wrote down that I think is pertinent for us we could talk about. The first was that you'll never be tempted with the sin that you don't desire, is what he talked about. And I think that's an interesting concept. I don't think I've ever heard it phrased that way. So the enemy's not going to tempt you with something that you don't want to do, right? Like he's not going to. He talked about it, right? He never gets tempted by some grilled asparagus. That was that's not going to get him to fall off the wagon.
Yeah.
But those Swiss rolls.
But a Swiss roll, a Hostess Swiss roll, or a Little Debbie Swiss roll, like he's like, that's going to do it because it's the thing that he desires. So let's talk about, because he said that, and then he also said that you'll never be freed from the sin that you don't hate. So let's talk about those two statements. What do you guys think about that?
I think that, like, obviously he framed it in a way that, like, made us really realize, hey, like, sin is meant to encapsulate us, and it's meant to draw us in, and it's meant to get us to want to stick with it. And if we're going to live in God's love, we have to learn to be uncomfortable with, like, being out of sin. Like, it's living a life in that sin, in that darkness, gets comforting and it gets easy, and up until the point that you're made to realize, oh, like, this is bad, it feels better to stay in it than it is to get out of it. And until you recognize, like, that discomfort needs to be dealt with, like, I think, what am I going with this? There's, like, a point to this that I, like, like, God's love is going to push you to do the things that you don't want to do, but in the end, it's what needs to be done. It's the cure that you never realized you needed until you started taking it and realized how much better it is on the other side.
Yeah, I feel like during the sermon, it kind of, like, popped up to me how, like, I feel like a lot of us get really comfortable in, like, our pain and suffering, and it's, like, sometimes it's just easier to, like, to be, like, sad and, like, upset at the world rather than, like, dealing with it and, like, focusing on the positivity. And it's, like, what he said is, like, 100% true. Like, droughted areas are not supposed to be inhabited. We can't just stay there or we won't grow.
I like what you said, that that he's never going to tempt us with something that we don't want. Like, most of the things that like the earth has is stuff that we want but we know is bad for us, which, like, the junk food thing is pretty good and stuff. Like, I really want that, but I know in the deepest part of my body that it's gonna do nothing for me. I think that we have to find, like, the part where it's like we have, like, the earthly stuff, but it's only the good stuff. But, like, because there's multiple bad things. The point is, like, don't consume yourself with stuff from the earth world, because it's not gonna last forever, and it's
temporary.
Yeah, it's just temporary. It's not gonna. There's no point in, like, having to doing something that you know is wrong, and then it's just not gonna affect your life in the good place. It's gonna get you off track and stuff. So,
I think maybe, I don't know whether it was his sermon or whether it was someone else's sermon, but I feel like I remember someone saying something like, God is kind of like that parent that tells you, like, no, like, and it's not like it's because I said so kind of situation where, the sin that, like, you want so badly and God says no, you don't always see the why. Like, it doesn't come out clear to you as to why you can't have that or why you can't do that or why it's bad for you until, like, you accept, okay, I'm not supposed to do this. Maybe in abstaining from it, I'll see why. And eventually, sometimes it is revealed to you that, like, why going down that path would have been bad for you.
Yeah, and I mean, sometimes you do, like, have to go down that path to be like, oh, that kind of makes sense why they said no.
you kind of have to, like, do something wrong to fix your mistake. Like, not just saying that do stuff wrong, like that, because you're gonna have to learn from it. But like, if you mess up, or like one day you're like, oh God, I think I should do it this way, and then it ends up horribly wrong, then you'll learn from that and be like, yeah, actually, maybe God's saying something. Like, maybe what God's saying is the right thing to do. So
God uses your failures to show the truth.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of the last thing I had from that sermon that really stuck out to me, so he was talking about Genesis 1, when in the creation story that there was chaos, things were without form, and that when God came into it, things came into place. And I love what he said. He said that there's no hope for Adam unless God fixed the atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So unless God fixed the atmosphere of the earth, there was no hope for life. And I think that when he talks about the desert places, he talks about these things, like that's what we're trying to do, is you've got to be in the right atmosphere to have God's love kind of flood you, and then you overflow, is what we talked about the whole time. And then that evening, after we had some downtime, and I think maybe we took, I don't know what we did that afternoon.
We went to Publix.
Oh, that was the rec hall. We went to Publix a few times.
A couple times.
Yeah.
Whatever it's called.
Oh, we went to, Sparkman Wharf too. But we went to the rec hall. Rec hall had all sorts of stuff, like inflatables and...
Me and Carter met those Canadians.
Yeah, I did the bull riding. That was fun.
That's right.
That was so funny.
Did anybody collect any stickers? Did you get any stickers from all the
No.
places?
Oh, they're all on my cone now.
On your cajon?
Yep.
I got some Point Loma and Olivet stickers, I think.
There you go.
Yeah, I got college stickers, but I didn't get anything else from anybody.
I know.
And those advertisements of the colleges were funny.
Yeah.
When they played right before the thing with the Cowboys and stuff, that was pretty funny.
That was so funny.
Oklahoma, they know what they're doing.
It's that time of year again. We're getting ready for the church-wide picnic. It will start at 4 p.m. on Sunday, August 6th. Come prepared for some group games with maybe some water balloons or an egg toss. Try your hand at cornhole and a little mingle bingo. Oh yeah, there will be prizes. We're giving away a $75 gift card to the new eatery in Johnstown, Ghost Rider Public House. Also, a $50 gift card to Witt's and $25 to Troyer's. This church-wide picnic is getting a little wider this year because we're all packing up and heading to Lenley Hannah's Memorial Park in Johnstown. We're planning to sing a couple worship songs, officially install Nick Shaner as the Johnstown campus pastor, and welcome several new members into the Shepherd family. I almost forgot. There'll be food at this picnic too. The church will supply burgers, hot dogs, and bottled water, but we need your help for the rest. If your last name starts with A through M, we're asking that you bring a salad or side dish. N through Z, you have the important task of bringing desserts. Mark your calendars now. Church-wide picnic, August 6th at 4 p.m. at Lenley Hannah's Memorial Park in Johnstown. Don't miss it.
Down in Oklahoma.
So we spent the afternoon in the rec hall, and then after dinner we had our second service, and it was Carly Bartlett was the preacher. I know we've got things to talk about there, so let's talk about it. Mary Kay's got a whole list, so we're gonna let her dive in. So we talked about the woman at the well was what the message was on. So you want to tell us what you think?
Yeah. Well, okay. I feel like for me, I haven't heard that story the way that Pastor Carly describes it.
Agreed.
Like she's talking in it like she's really giving the woman at the well. She's like giving her side of the story. I feel like we always look at it from this like, oh, well, she's this adulterous woman.
Yeah, we jump to conclusions, and I feel bad about that now.
Yeah, but I mean, with
I was
her
putting
talking,
check on it.
With her talking about how she was like, she seemed to be unwanted and like abandoned, and I don't know, it really convicted me because I know like I can like jump to conclusions and I can be kind of judgmental, and it's like, I mean, Jesus showed her compassion no matter if she was a Samaritan woman, no matter how many husbands she had, even if the fact that she was living with somebody who she wasn't married to. I mean, like, if we as believers do that, I feel like we'll bring in so many more non-believers by just showing the love of Christ. And I feel like that was kind of her big thing. And my favorite thing that she said is, God is God and we are not. I feel like sometimes we really do just try to, like, play God, and it's like, we can't do that. We don't have that power. We don't have that all-knowing knowledge. And I think sometimes we just need to be reminded of that.
She's also the one that talked about white knuckled fisting things.
Like clenching on.
I think that I'm 99% sure that everybody's done that. That we're just too focused into something, and we just kind of need to let it go. I mean, the only like the things that we can do are like super small to what God can do, and if you just let it go, God will take care of it. I think that we just focus on things too much. But we need to focus on things, but let God also have a part in it of almost everything that we do. So almost everything that we do, we just let God have it.
And her sermon was the one where they had like all the paintings in the background, right? Yeah, I thought that those, like, you know, aside from just watching the message and listening to what she said, like, to see like how they were portraying what she was saying, like, visually, was also very captivating, because, you know, sometimes it gives you a different perspective as to how the message is being shown, and how, like, you know, some of the art that they put up there was kind of abstract, or, like, you know, it was less formed than like some other pieces, and it was very quick, and it kind of just added on to her point, like the fists and stuff, and like, you know, the face that was being held. I think it just kind of added like another layer of like, wow, okay, like, we need to give up this, like, you know, white-knuckled life. We need to lay down this pain to God and let him take control of that.
I think another thing about her, like, message was that she wanted to break it down into, like, one section and then worship, and then go back and then more worship, so that we could kind of, like, sit with what she said and actually take time to think about it.
That was
and
like
then
the ballet too,
God.
Right?
I think that was the next day.
Oh, it was the next day?
I think that was day 2, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
We can go back to it.
We'll go back to that, yeah.
Yeah.
And in that story, in John chapter 4, what it talks about is the spring of water that will well up inside of you, is what Jesus is talking about. Like, I have this living water that will be a spring inside of you that will change everything. And that's the thing that was missing in her life, was that God-shaped hole that she didn't know how to fill, and she felt unwanted, felt like nobody wanted to be around her. She was the outcast. Jesus had something for her, and what she talked about was that he took her in a loving embrace. I want you to know me, and that was Pastor Carly's hope for you guys and for everybody in the room, that you understand that, like, Jesus wants you to know him more than you come to church on Sundays or Wednesdays and you hear all this information, have knowledge about him, but that you would know him as a friend and like in a personal way. And it kind of sets the stage for the rest of the week, because until you know Jesus and until you like get to that space, like the next steps, which what we'll talk about, like talk about holiness and, you know, sanctification, it's hard to do that if you don't first take that step to know Jesus. Yeah,
and I mean, I think the other really big thing that stood out is, like, in her sermon, she talked about how she married a pastor. And, okay, I know she didn't just marry him because he was a pastor, but, sorry, but, like, she had felt that she was, like, being called into ministry, and that, like, wasn't popular or whatever. And, like, I think it was just so, like, it really stuck out to me that she like, knew that this could be the closest she was going to get to what, like, God had planned for her. And I think that was just really, like, that really just, like, did something in me, where it's like, I want to have that, like, I have to be this close. Like, if I can't do it, then I have to, because this is what God wants for me.
And then after the service, we got to hang out with For King and Country. Right?
Yes.
It was Carter's favorite night.
It was my first concert. I've never been to a concert ever. So it was
crazy.
You went from never going to a concert to doing 3 there, and then came home, went to the NF concert.
Yeah.
You had quite the week. You had quite the week.
Quite the week. Very interesting to say the least. But yeah,
it was funny.
That was so fun though.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Came in concertless, came back 3 concerts in, decided she needed more.
Yeah. Cool.
It was definitely a weird first concert ever. I should.
They were so unhinged.
They were very unhinged.
Yeah.
Fun.
I think that was like my favorite part of the weekend was how unhinged, like I feel like everybody kind of was.
Unhinged for Jesus.
Yeah.
literally.
Like they weren't like psychotic, but like.
Well.
For Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was the best.
But yeah.
And also talking about music, the worship was pretty. It was.
Would you call it unhinged?
It was very unhinged.
Yeah.
I think a couple of the songs were unhinged.
Oh my God!
Hair flips. Yeah. I was living for those.
It was. I think it was crazy because every single worship session felt like a concert, though, too, in of itself,
Yeah.
right? So you went from one concert of like worship music to another concert of 2 boys getting into an elevator and just shaking around in an elevator.
It's not quite what they were
Like a
doing.
little elevator, okay?
It's not quite the right
They were
word.
in their own.
Okay, but it was definitely it was 2 men. Okay.
I really appreciated about each of like the artists though that came and like outside of like our worship experiences like that we had later at night with the concerts was how each of them individually took their time to like address spirituality and like topics that like were very like prevalent in our world and like how we should go about dealing with them. So
Yeah.
I appreciated how like even though we were all going crazy and all having a good time and stuff that we could kind of sit and have serious moments like that.
Yeah.
I like the fact that each person, each speaker who was sharing something, like speaking to us, shared something from their life.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like, I'm talking about my friend. They were like talking about themselves and like them growing in their faith. And I thought that was
That's good.
Yeah, I thought it was crazy how For King and Country started talking about like their video about sex trafficking and all of that. And, like it wasn't, you could tell like it wasn't just like oh hey, this is what we did, go watch it for like views. Like and then I loved how they went into Priceless but they were really, because like I feel like sometimes even just like as like a teenage girl, sometimes I feel like I'm like less important, like not like compared to men, but like rather than, because I feel like we're in a very like materialistic world and like I feel like it's very like how do you look, and so like just hearing them like talk about like how we're not perfect as we are, but like God created us like this, and we're like, I mean we're the what's it called? We're the missing rib. And I think just like hearing that was just like really like crazy, because I feel like most people don't talk about that.
And we'll get a little more of that when it comes to Pastor Carla's message that this isn't a thing for guys. It's meant for you guys, you girls too. So, and finally, it seemed like it would never come, but it was time to go to bed.
Oh yeah.
That was so good.
Oh yeah. It felt like
The bed was so comfy.
So that
awake for 21 out of the 24 hours of the day. That was insane.
So, all right. Well, do you want to add anything? Because you've been awfully quiet throughout this episode.
Just taking it all in. Yeah, I'll talk in the next one.
Okay.
She's gonna be the head face of the next one. She's gonna do the intro.
She's doing the intro. You heard it here first. All right. Well, that's gonna wrap it up for this episode. Tune back in tomorrow. We'll talk more about day 2 of NYC Nazarene Youth Conference, and all my friends will join us again. You can find out more about what's happening at Shepherd on our website, through our podcasts, and our social media pages. If you want to get a hold of us, let us know what you think. You can get a hold of us at podcast@shepnaz.org. For all my friends around the table, I'm Joey. Have a great day.
This podcast is a production of the Shepherd Church of the Nazarene, Gahanna, Ohio. Email to podcast@shepnaz.org and let us know what you think.